morning, Gunston. Buenos días a todos. Welcome to our first annual Hispanic Heritage Month career visit. Today we have a real treat. In a moment, I will ask some amazing sixth grade students to introduce you to our guests. But first, a few reminders. As you are listening to our guests today, think about what it means to be a good audience member. Sit up tall, listen for a personal connections, and things that sounds interesting to you. You will have a chance to ask some questions. Hopefully, you can remember some of the things Joseph Martinez shares today when you are in science class. And hopefully, you can take some time to reflect on your identity as our guest shares about his life, professional journey, and legacy. Some of you might recognize our guest if your family watched the evening news. We want to share your excitement and also be sure you are showing Gunston pride. Before I pass the microphone to our students, I want to say thank you, Señora Rodriguez, for reaching out to our guests, our principal, Ms. Jackson, for supporting this event, and Ms. Harris Thomas and the facility crew for making sure we have everything we need to this morning. Gracias.
Good morning. My name is Hilda. My name is Mia. Let's introduce our guest, Joseph Martinez. Joseph Martinez is a meteorologist for Noticiero Telemundo 44. Every evening, he shares news related to the weather with the Spanish-speaking community in the Washington, D.C. area, including Arlington. This means he prepares ahead of time by observing the current weather patterns, uses data to make predictions, and thinks about how to communicate and explain the forecast to the viewers. Mr. Martinez started working at Telemundo 44 in November of 2017 and has won a few awards for his work. Before moving to Arlington, he worked at other TV stations in Texas and Puerto Rico. He got his bachelor's degree in mathematics at the University of Puerto Rico and then got certified to be a meteorologist at Mississippi State University. Thank you, Mr. Martinez, for being here today.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so proud and happy to be here. I actually live in Arlington, so I'm home. I didn't have to drive a lot. I've been living here for 5.5 years, so thank you for having me. And as you were mentioning, I'm a meteorologist for Telemundo 44. You can watch me on TV every day at 5, 5:30, 6, and 11 p.m. Even though 11 p.m. is late, but I'm there live every day. We don't tape the newscast, it's live. So you can watch us live every day. So let's begin with the presentation, because before answering your questions about weather and meteorology, I want to talk a little bit about my Hispanic heritage. We are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and I was born in Puerto Rico. Is anybody here from Puerto Rico? Woo, the teacher. So I was born there, and of course my native language is Spanish, but we are required to take an English class every day from 1st grade to 12th grade. So that's why I learned English in a public school. Then finally, when I turned 24, I moved to the mainland United States. I moved to Texas. I spent 2 years there, and then I've been here for 7.5 years. Actually, it's gonna be 8 next November. So I moved during Thanksgiving weekend here to the DC area. So I'm from the mountains of Puerto Rico. I'm used to the 70s. My town is really fresh. I love the temperatures in the 70s. I don't like temperatures in the 90s. So if you ask me what's my favorite weather season or season of the year, I would say spring and fall, because I don't like summer heat. As we go to the next slide, I want to talk to you about what Hispanic meteorologists have inspired me to be here today. The first one is Ada Monzon. She's the first female meteorologist in my island of Puerto Rico. She actually went to visit my school when I was your age. When I was in 6th, 7th grade, she went to my school. So she really inspired me because I was always watching the news when I was home. I was like, sitting in my living room and I said, I want to be in the news one day. And look at me, I'm here today. And thanks to her that went to my school, inspired me to actually go to the university and study the weather and becoming a meteorologist. Another guy that has inspired me a lot is Carlos. He is the meteorologist for the national newscast of Telemundo. I'm here in Telemundo, DC. He's in Miami, so you can see him at the newscast that goes after us at 6:30 in the afternoon and 11:35 at night. He has inspired me a lot with, the creative process of doing our graphics. I build my own graphics. I have to design every map that you see on air. I don't have anyone doing that for me. So he has helped me a lot to do that. And also another person that has inspired me a lot is Suheili Lopez. The three of them are Puerto Rican. Actually, I went to the university with her, and she was really important in my life because when I was a student in the university, she was already working as a meteorologist on TV. And she invited us to her TV station so we could practice. And believe me, practicing in front of the green screen for the first time is really hard. So she was very patient, and she pretty much was my first mentor when I was a student. And she really helped me develop the confidence to speak in front of the camera and to, deal with mistakes that you could make when you were speaking, because being in front of the camera is not as easy as it looks. So going to the next slide, one of the questions that I got from some of you about Hispanic heritage is what legacy I want to build by myself or for myself. And I would say inspire new generations. Like those people did with me, they inspired me. I want to inspire you. You might like the news, you might like the weather, you might like science or math. Maybe you want to become an engineer, an astronaut, whatever you want to be. So that's my mission, to be on the newscast, educating you, helping you, and inspiring you. Because if I did it when I was your age, then you can do it, as you get older. Another question that I got from you regarding Hispanic heritage is how my identity influenced my work. And I would say that my identity as bilingual really impacts my job, because that gives me the ability of understanding the information in English and being able to communicate it in Spanish for audiences, for our audience in Telemundo, because if they're watching us, they want to get their information in Spanish, right? But weather information comes in English pretty much all the time, from the National Weather Service, from the National Hurricane Center, from a lot of sources, government agencies that have experts analyzing what's happening in the world. And being bilingual really is very important, because I can get the information and then translate it and communicate it effectively to our audience. So that's why it's so important to be bilingual or even speak more than 2 languages, because you're able to communicate more effectively with the rest of the world, and you can serve your community in 2 languages. Another question that I had is, how do I celebrate my Hispanic heritage this month and throughout the year? Well, first, eating a lot. Hispanic food and Latin American food is really good. And I also feel very proud because actually I'm the only Hispanic meteorologist here in the DC area. So that's really important for me, because, thank you. That is really important for me, because that means that all of the Hispanic audiences are getting really good information in terms of the weather when they're watching Hispanic news or Spanish news. Another way that I participate, or that I feel proud of my Hispanic Heritage Month throughout the year, is Going to cultural activities. There's a lot of activities going on in the DC area that celebrate Hispanic heritage, not only this month, but throughout the year. For example, I've been to a lot of activities that are dancing bomba and plena, which are Puerto Rican rhythms native to our island, and I've been to those activities. I think it was like 3 months ago, we had a group of plena, which is traditional music. They were visiting Reston, Virginia, and I was there because I like to keep, connected to my roots. I am not where I was born, I was born in Puerto Rico, but sometimes you miss your culture, you miss your food, you miss that music. So keeping connected or staying connected to that music that you grew up with is really important for me. So now let's go to some questions about the weather, and the number one question that I get all the time is, how do I deal with a green screen? Well, I used to have a green screen for pretty much 7 years that I've been working as a meteorologist. And yes, there was, something green behind me, but the trick or the secret was that you have actually 2 televisions, one on this side, one on this side. So you are not looking to the back, you're looking to the side, like if you're watching yourself in the mirror. But I have a surprise. Let's go to the next slide, because I don't use a green screen anymore. We have a brand new studio that we launched in March. So I have a really big screen now.
Cielos parcialmente nublados y temperatura de 47 grados, pero después de varios días tranquilos, prepárese porque para mañana viernes bajan las temperaturas y esta tormenta estará dejando lluvia desde las horas de la mañana y algunos condados pudieran ver un poco de nieve. El pronóstico antiguo a las 11.
That is an old video. We are not gonna see any snow coming soon. That was in March when we launched the studio. But as you can see, I have a really cool big TV. So I don't have to deal with a green screen anymore. That's really awesome. Although it was really hard for me to get used to having a TV because, if you're using something for 7.5 years and suddenly you get a change, it's hard to get used to it, right? So I was so used to the green screen and seeing myself on the sides that then when I got this brand new huge monitor, it was hard for me, but now I love it. It's really cool. Another question that I had is why some stations have a more accurate forecast than other TV stations. And here I have 2 pictures. Of course, you don't see the numbers because they're too small, but I want to give you an example. A cold front is going to come through tomorrow, and the temperatures are going to drop. We have been in the 80s the whole week. This cold front is going to bring cold air, especially for Sunday morning. It's going to be in the 40s, and Monday morning as well. It's going to be chilly when you get here to school next Monday. No school? Is it a holiday? It's a holiday. Okay, I'm lost. I have to work, so that's why I don't know. But anyway, Tuesday morning is going to be chilly as well. So, what my point is that a cold front is going to come through the area, right? So, I have here 2 maps. These are 2 computer models that try to show what the temperature is going to be for the next couple of days. And this is Monday morning. One of the computer models is saying the temperature Monday morning is going to be 46 degrees, and another computer model is saying 48 degrees. And you might think, well, 2 degrees is not much difference, right? It's gonna be cold anyways. But that little difference of 2 degrees can really have an impact on the weather accuracy that some of you were asking, like why some stations have a better rating than others. A little difference as 2 degrees can impact how accurate is the forecast. Is it gonna be 46 or 48? Maybe for us it's not a big difference. I mean, it would be if one of them said 50 and the other one said 90, right? It's gonna be cold or hot. But as we continue to go with the slide, what I want to say is that our job as meteorologists, we have to pretty much solve a puzzle. We have pieces of information to try to forecast the weather. And sometimes we have scenarios like this, that some computer models are saying one number, another computer model is saying another number. So we have to decide, do I want to put 46 or 48 in the forecast? We all have this access to the same resources. Like nowadays, all of the TV stations can see these weather maps. They all can see the same radars, the same satellite, but the difference is how you are going to use all of those tools. If you want to use one computer model or the other, that can really impact how accurate your forecast is. 48 or 46, well, as I was mentioning at the beginning, little scores, little differences can affect the score, but what I can tell you is that Telemundo 44 actually has been the most accurate weather forecast in Spanish for the last 5 years. English newscasts and Spanish newscasts are rated differently, but Telemundo has been winning for the last 5 years. So, if you are watching the news with me, then that means that you're gonna have a really accurate forecast. Another question that I got from you is that, do I work just a few hours, right? I mean, you just see me for 5 minutes on air. Do you think I just, go there and do my weather segment and then I go home, relax? Some of you say yes, some of you say no. Well, when I was your age, I used to think the same. I was like, well, I'm watching her on the news and she's there just for 5 minutes. What does she do the rest of the day, right? Now I understand what they do. No, we just don't work a few hours. We work 8 hours like a regular job, like your parents do or your teachers do. Well, sometimes it's more than 8 hours for sure. So I want to break down like what do we do before the newscast. So before the newscast, you can continue going. We pretty much have to analyze the data. We have to look at the satellite, the radar, the temperature, what is going on today, and then we have to analyze some computer models, the maps that I was showing you, to check what is going to happen tonight, tomorrow, how cold is going to be on Sunday morning, how cold is going to be on Monday, because then I have to prepare some graphics that tells you like, hey, you need a jacket if you're going to school, or you need a jacket if you have to work outdoors. So all of that analyzing phase of my job takes time because we have to look at a lot of information. Today, I just have to look at temperatures, radar because it's going to rain potentially tonight, the satellites to see the clouds, but imagine if we had a hurricane. I have then to look at other information. Where is the hurricane? What is the path? So it's a lot of information that we have to look at. Then during the newscast, our newscast is from 5 to 6:30, so it's an hour and a half that I have to be in the studio. Sometimes I have 6 weather segments, 2 every half hours. 2 at 5, 2 at 5:30, 2 at 6. So of course I'm doing job during that time. And then between the 6 p.m. and the 11 p.m. show, I'm not just relaxing, I have to actually do other work. For example, sometimes I have to do interviews with NASA. For example, next weekend, there's gonna be a solar eclipse. And NASA sent us an email like, hey, do you wanna do an interview to talk about the eclipse? And then I would do the interview online or via Zoom, for example, with them during that break, dinner break. Sometimes I have to do a story that you see on air, and I have to go to the computer and edit the video by myself. Last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I was editing a story about how the drought conditions, the lack of rain, is affecting some towns in parts of Northern Virginia. A town called Front Royal is under water restrictions because they haven't seen a lot of rain. So I was editing that story that aired later, and I used my time to do that. Other things that we do in between the breaks, sometimes I have to take trainings to learn new things about graphics, and sometimes I have to build graphics for the next day, maybe graphics that are complicated. For example, as I was telling you, there's a solar eclipse coming up next weekend, not tomorrow, next weekend. So I'm already working on a graphic that is going to bring, the Earth right here, the moon and the sun to explain something, and that takes time. Another question that I got, and it was really interesting, is do I believe in climate change? What do you think? Yes, very good. And the first thing that I want to say is that me, as I went to the university and I studied science. Actually, my bachelor degree was in mathematics, so I studied math and meteorology. So as a scientist, I think that climate change is not something about believing in it or not. I think climate change is based on scientific facts. What kind of facts? Well, for example, the Earth goes around the sun, right? That is a fact. Because we have, years and seasons, and that's because the Earth goes around the sun. That is a fact. Another fact is that, of course, the Earth is a globe. It is not fact, although you can see people online arguing that it's fact, but that is not a fact. So these are facts that prove that, the Earth goes around the sun and it is not flat. So climate change is also based on facts. What are the facts? The temperatures are warming up. There is proof with data that the temperatures are warmer since the satellite era began. Our planet on average is warmer than in the 1800s. Another fact is that we have more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, like the carbon dioxide levels are rising rapidly. Another fact is that the sea levels are rising. Cities like Miami has seen more coastal flooding than ever before because the seas are rising, and the ice in the North Pole and the South Pole are also decreasing, and that has been measured by satellite data. And another fact is that the oceans are warming up. Actually, this year, 2023, has been one of the warmest water temperatures ever recorded. So all of that data proves that climate change exists and is real. It is based on science and data. Let's go to the next slide because I was just mentioning how hot the ocean is. And as you can see, that graphic to the left, that actually shows the temperatures in the ocean. In 2023, the ocean has been really warm, warmer than all of the previous years on record. That's like an average of the planet, and then on the right side, you see that temperature. What do you see with the red line? It's going up, right? So that graphic is showing the average temperature in Washington, D.C. for the entire winter. What does this mean? The graphics began in 1876, so more than 100 years ago, and on average, our winters are warming up, slowly, but they are. So that's why the red line is going up. That means that the winters are not as cold as they used to be. So that is a fact, because it has been measured that the temperatures are slightly warming up. So that's why I believe in climate change, because it is, supported by data that has been recorded. Another data that proves about the climate change is the carbon dioxide levels. As you can see, it has skyrocketed for the past years, and that really impacts the temperatures because carbon dioxide stays in our atmosphere, and that is a gas that traps the heat. It's a greenhouse gas. So if we keep adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, that means that the temperatures are going to continue to warm. Another question related to climate change is that, is it strictly scientific? Yes, because I was just showing you. Climate change is based on data. It is not something that was made up with ideas or something. It is based on observation, like the temperatures, like the sea ice extent and all that. So that has all been observed, measured, and studied. So yes, it is it's strictly scientific. Another part of this same question was, if the climate change is strictly scientific, why some people don't believe in it? Well, I would say that maybe they don't know the facts, but actually, the majority of people believe in climate change, especially here in the DC area. And people, we might think about scientists or people that are not scientists. So let's talk about the scientists. 97% of the scientific community agrees that climate change is occurring because the human beings are responsible, because we are using a lot of things that emit carbon dioxide to the atmosphere and that raises the temperatures. Things like our cars, things like power plants. All of those things that we use emit carbon dioxide, and that, increase the temperatures in the planet. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation on social media, so my advice to you is that don't believe on a video that a random person posts on TikTok saying something. Trust the meteorologists, trust the scientists, because if we went to the university to study these things, it's because we have the background, we have the facts to talk about things. Not a random person might be giving wrong ideas on social media and they don't know what they're talking about. And then there's another study made by the Yale University. As you can see, in the country, 72% of the population think that climate change is occurring. So the question said, why don't many people believe in it? Well, actually, many people believe in it. 72% of persons agree that climate change is occurring on national average, and then on the right map, it is breaking down by counties, and you can see pretty much all of the counties in the United States have a really high percentage of people saying that they believe in climate change, and here in the DC area, the percentages are really high. And I would say, education and access to facts are really important, so now you know the facts about climate change. Another question that I got is that if I went to the university to become a meteorologist or a journalist, well, actually I went to the university to become a meteorologist. I didn't take any class of journalism or communications. I strictly studied science, so I pretty much learned the part of being in front of the camera on the way, in doing practice, doing an internship. But I studied the weather. That's a lot of mathematics, biology, chemistry, physics. I would say more mathematics than everything else. And you see our job as meteorologists just being in front of the camera and in front of the maps. But meteorology has a lot of mathematics, a lot of equations try to describe how the wind moves around the planet. And that's really important for you if you want to do the weather on TV, to study meteorology, because that will help you to understand why things happen. What is a tornado watch? What is a severe thunderstorm watch? When we have all of those things, we need to understand what is going on so we can explain it to the people. Another question that I got, and that really made me laugh, is that why can us be wrong often? Do you think we are often wrong? Yes. Well, I would say this is a misconception of the weather people. We are not wrong often. And I'm gonna show you an example. But what I can tell you is that people pay more attention to mistakes. Think about when you come to school every day. You come normally, you take your classes, and then you go home. But what happens if this morning you were eating and you fall and all of your food got in the floor? Everybody's gonna laugh at you, right? They shouldn't, but some of them will. So my point is that unfortunately, sometimes people pay more attention to mistakes even though you do things right the rest of the time. So that happens to meteorologists. We are good forecasters, I would say 95% of the time, but there's one day that something doesn't go as expected, and then we have this misconception that we are often wrong. But that is not the case. Very few times a year the forecast doesn't go as it was supposed to. And I'm gonna show you a picture. This was my I was doing the news in English actually last Sunday. I had to wake up really early on Sunday morning, and I was on NBC4 doing the forecast. that is a screenshot from Sunday. That is like pretty much 5 days ago, right? On Sunday, I said, it is going to be sunny on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. What happened? It was sunny, right? It didn't rain. I said the temperatures are going to be warm in the 80s for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Look at the forecast. 81, 82. It was around 81 for Wednesday. That happened. Last Sunday I said Thursday is going to be 79. We were 79 yesterday, and that was on Sunday. And then last Sunday I said for Friday it's going to be cooler in the 70s, mostly cloudy. There's a chance of some rain. Look outside today, it's mostly cloudy. We are in the 70s. We had a little rain this morning around Annapolis, Maryland. There's a chance of rain for tonight around 11 p.m. Last Sunday, we were talking about a cold front that was going to come through tomorrow, and that was going to give us cool temperatures for Sunday. Look, the second Sunday that you see, it says cool 65, Monday cool 64. And that is still the forecast because the cold front is going to come through tomorrow. So you see, nothing of that forecast that was given 5 days ago has been wrong. So I hope that shows you that we are, doing a good forecast most of the time. But we are humans, we pay attention to mistakes. Another thing that I want to show you in regards to the forecast is why can we often be wrong with our predictions? Well, it is not often, as I just showed you. It's in rare occasions, but yes, errors do happen. Sometimes the things doesn't go as we would like, we are expecting. And it is because, the atmosphere and our Earth is very complicated. There are a lot of ingredients that might be there, but then they just don't happen. For example, I have a picture here. If you have some ingredients like eggs, flour, sugar, butter, and a cupcake holder, what do you think is going to form? Pizza? Mac and cheese? I don't see the cheese. A cupcake, right? The cupcake holder was the hint, right? But what happens? We can have beautiful cupcakes like this if you put together the ingredients in the right amount, if you put the oven on the right temperature. But what happens if you put the oven in the wrong temperature, or you forget the butter, or you add more water to the mix? Then the cupcakes could turn on really not nice looking, right? So, something similar happens to our atmosphere. Sometimes we have a lot of ingredients that tells you like, hey, we can have really strong thunderstorms. We have heat, humidity, we have winds that are favorable for tornadoes. But then one thing fails. Like maybe here the temperature of the oven was not the right. In the atmosphere it would be like maybe we got more clouds than expected, and the clouds block the sun, and the sun block means that it's going to be less warm, and that is less fuel for the thunderstorms. So, think about it that way with the cupcakes, the recipes. It's not about the ingredients, but it's also how you mix them. It's about the person cooking it. Maybe I'm not so talented doing, baking stuff. So in the atmosphere, it's something similar. There are a lot of ingredients that have to be perfectly aligned for things to happen. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. For example, there was one year that we were all expecting snow for a morning newscast. And then the temperatures stayed above freezing. We stayed like 36 degrees instead of being 32. And that made a huge change because it just rained. The snow never happened. That is in really rare occasions, but yes, errors happen. So, meteorology is not a perfect science like math. That 1 + 1 is 2. In meteorology, we have a lot of variables that have to come together. Another question that I got from you is how changing conditions in the atmosphere. No, wait, I have this one first. Often be wrong. Oh yes, I was just telling you that it is a common misconception that we are wrong most of the time, and also another thing that might add to what people say, like, oh, weathermen are always wrong, especially among the Hispanic community. I think, part of the problem is that most of us come from countries that don't have meteorologists on TV. So here in the United States, we actually have meteorologists on TV. And here in the United States, we have weather conditions that don't happen in most of Latin American countries. Here we have tornadoes. We don't have tornadoes in most of Latin American countries. We have severe thunderstorms in the US. That does not happen in most of our countries. So it's really important that you are here to learn from meteorologists. And if you watch a meteorologist, that will change your mind that we are not often wrong. Another question that I got is how changing conditions in the atmosphere cause the weather. That's a really complex question, but I try to show it to you with a pot of boiling water. Our atmosphere is like a pot of water. We have water vapor everywhere, although you don't see it, right? But what happens, what do we need to boil water? Water. Heat, right? So in our atmosphere, the heat, of course, doesn't come from the stove, but it comes from the sun, right? So we have an atmosphere full of water vapor, and then we add the heat of the sun, and that starts to boil the water in the air, and that's how clouds are created, right? So it's pretty much like this. You see the bubbles in the water, the same bubbles happen in the air, although we don't see it, but then eventually that creates the clouds, and then it rains. So that's part of the changing conditions that cause the weather. Now I want to talk about some really cool tools that we use, and the first one is the radar. That is the radar right there. It's like a dome on top of a tower. We have 5 of those here in the DC area. The closest one is in the Reagan National Airport here in Arlington. And that radar is really important because we can see in real time what is happening. Where is it raining? So if you see me like that in the newscast, that you see the little dot there with the white line, that is the radar beam scanning what's going on in real time. So we can see where is the rain, how heavy is the rain, do we have a threat for flash flooding, is there a tornado? All of that information is coming from the radar. And here in the United States, we are fortunate that we have a network of radars coast to coast. Unfortunately, there are some countries that don't have this technology. So there are countries that if it rains, well, whatever, it rained, it came from nowhere, or you don't have an idea if there's going to be flash flooding. But here we have really good meteorological tools to keep you safe, because at the end of the day, what we do is to keep you safe at home. Another really cool tool that we have, and I think some of you might not know, is a weather balloon. Have you heard about it? Yes, very good. So this weather balloon is launched twice every day, at 7 in the morning and at 7 in the afternoon. And the weather balloon has that orange thing, that's a parachute, because eventually it's gonna, explode. And then it has like a little box. That little box is called a radio sound, and it has a thermometer to measure the temperature, to measure the wind, and that's really important because it gives us information. Is it cold enough in the atmosphere for snow? Or is it too warm that the snow that is up there is going to melt? So that's another really important tool that we have. Going on to the next one, we have tools as well in the space, right? Like satellites. There are a lot of satellites. Okay, perfect. So another tool that we have is the satellite, and we can see what conditions are happening where we don't have humans, like hurricanes that might be in the middle of the ocean. So those are really important, and you can see the live pictures of our Earth. If you go to the NOAA website, you can see the satellite data. And then at the end of the day in the news, we use the maps to summarize all the data. That blue line with triangles is the cold front that is coming tomorrow. And the high pressure that you see in the middle of the country just means that it's going to be sunny. And then going on to the last slide, another tool that we have, I was mentioning that meteorology has a lot of mathematics. All of those ugly equations that you see there, they are trying to predict this is the last slide, so I was done anyways. All of those equations predict how the winds are behaving, how hot the temperatures are going to be, and that's what computers use to try to predict the weather.